Good day. The Honorable Chair, Dr. M.D. Mohsin Raza from Bangladesh University, my heartiest congratulations to the organizing committee of this deserving international conference on life, culture, and education, and my thanks for inviting me, an Indo Canadian poet, novelist, and essayist to talk about COVID-19 that has failed to suppress the spirit of poets. It is not easy to organize such a global conference. I must mention some names, and the names which come in my mind at this time. One is Mahatma Gandhi Education and Welfare Society from Parbhani, and particularly Dr. Kalyan Gangarde. Dr. Kalyan is a vibrant soul who worked hard and worked silently to make the conference a memorable day for everyone. I am thankful to particularly Professor Dr. Arvind Chaudhary for several reasons. The topic of the conference, life, culture, and education, are actually three branches of the same tree from the same root. I am happy to express myself about poets and coronavirus to this special gathering of eminent intellectuals. Some of you are prominent artists, prominent authors of collections of poems. Dr. Arvind Chaudhary is a prominent poet and literary critic and has been promoting poets for years now with his well-known publication, Comitted. I feel pleased to talk about life that has not been made lifeless by a creature that is so tiny that we cannot see with our naked eyes. This tiny creature has forced the world to seek shelter in the cave of self-isolation. The tiny, invisible creature has failed to suppress the fire of poets and artists. A life of self-isolation provides oxygen to their works. A life of self-isolation provides oxygen to their life and to their culture. These demonic forces of virus has failed to dampen the spirit of the poets and the spirit of artists. Life without culture and education, my friends, is tasteless, is useless. If there are no poets and artists, because these are poets and artists who provide beauty, who provide truth and meaning to culture. That is why poets and writers They are considered the backbone of society. To be backbone, poets, writers, and other artists need self-isolation. The isolation I'm talking about is not the isolation that is thrust upon anyone. This is not the isolation that is forced upon prisoners or the punishment that parents give to their children because of their disobedience. The isolation I'm talking about prevails in the monastery of the Muse. This monastery is for the seeker who longs for a sanctuary to unmask his or her spark, for the gift of creation. Isolation here, isolation in this cave of silence, nourishes something that is the medium for divine revelation. I believe that committed poets have thirst for this kind of isolation because it is meaningful, because it is productive. Poets are aware that in order to create, they are aware that in order to produce, one has to be in a quiet place. Farmers know that a fowl looks for a quiet place to lay her egg, and eggs are for creation. The silence is not forced because of any fear. The silence is the mother of creativity. This inner silence, this inner stillness is the source of intuition. This is the cave where path-breaking poems are written. This is the cave where unimaginable music is composed. This is the cave where leading discoveries are made. This is the cave without thoughts. This is the cave without logic. This is the cave without unfriendly feelings. Poets receive deserving atmosphere in this cave. Solitude in this cave is so blissful. Solitude in this cave is so beautiful that Greeks had to invent gods and goddesses who lived on the height of mountains. Even the supreme god of Hindu mythology lived on Mount Kailash of Himalayas. From this cave of self-isolation, the seeker is transported to another cave of minimum stress. Self-isolation creates solitude for poets, for artists to discover their true self. Beautiful things we know, such as flowers, beautiful things such as delicious fruits, they all grow in silence. The sun, the moon, and planets ambulate in silence to manifest the deepest depth of infinite radiance of timelessness. When we are in a silent place, we bathe ourselves in the imperishable fragrance of an unknown glory, unknown beauty. Silence is to communicate with the real self and the real self is without the clothes of the thoughts. We know Buddha was in isolation, fasting for 40 days before receiving his enlightenment. Buddha was enlightened in solitude. Christ prepared himself for his ministry of selfless love in monastery of isolation. He fasted for 40 days and 40 nights before choosing his disciples, before starting his spiritual battle. There are verses in the gospel to show that even during the ministry, Christ renewed his spiritual power by going into solitude. Jesus passed even his last hours in contact with the divine power, aloof from his disciples in a garden. 10 Commandments, which are the base of Christianity, were written in solitude around 1,400 years before Christ on Mount Sinai. These commandments were dictated by God to Moses when Moses was in self-isolation. Creation would be immense. Creation would be astonishing. Creation would be mind-blowing if a human learns to listen to the voice of silence in self-isolation, because that voice is not superficial. When we succeed in our efforts of conquering noises, when we succeed in conquering noises from outside and also from inside, we are turned to the source of creation, and miracles begins to happen. because then we are one with the creative force. To connect with this creative force, to get miracles, after we are with the creative force, we will be very pleased. To connect with this creative force, we have to turn off the switch of artificial noises and listen to the voiceless stillness. We know God is peace. It is said in India, Om Shanti Shanti Om. And Om is God and His peace. Peace is the absence of stress. In order to be healthy, we have to follow God, and God is peace. Medical science tells us that every organ of the body needs peace to function properly. This is the way to enjoy longevity. This is the way to enjoy disease-free living. Cardiologists know that stress harms the heart. Some schools of the medical science believe that stress disturbs metabolism and even grows tumors. Stress also deteriorates mental and physical fitness. Stress causes high blood pressure. Stress causes heart problems. Stress causes headaches and muscle tensions and various other ailments. I have discussed in my novel, The Chattis Girl, more about self-isolation in my chapter titled Noise. I have described there that how noise interferes with recreation and sleep. Look at the branches of the tree, how they hurt one another when the wind is noisy. They bang into one another in frenzy. According to the Bible, in the beginning there was absolute silence. With His words, God spoke with silence to create heaven and earth. Silence heard God. Poets create heaven and earth even now with their words, provided they have time, provided they have patience, provided they are in the cave of their silence to allow their words to work. Solitude is to create with words. At this time, at this critical juncture of time, the more I think of the COVID-19, the more I am convinced that its virus is an infectious agent that was created by maniac messiahs to strengthen their lust, to control the bodies of the world governments. This virus has the courage. This invisible virus has muscles. This dangerous virus has freedom to upset the world in every way, particularly the world's economic order. Unexpectedly, the forces of the maniac messiahs also came under the control of the virus that is so tiny that naked eyes are not able to see. However, the virus has failed to dampen the spirit of serious poets. I think that the epidemic of COVID-19 will remain a puzzle for a long, long time. It will take time to develop a vaccine to fight this trivial monster. Even if vaccine is developed like other medicines and vaccines, its vaccine may not be without side effects, at least to some people. It is wise to take the matter of health in our own hands instead of waiting and depending on science to develop vaccine. Towards the end, I would like to add that committed poets are committed painters. What artists paint with brush and colors, poets paint with words. Every artist is a poet. The only difference is the language that he or she uses for expression. The language of a poet is different from the language of a dancer. And the language of a dancer is different from the language of a painter. And the language of a painter is different from the language of a musician, and so on and so forth. Poets are painters who use words instead of colors. Dancers are also poets, but they use the movements of hands, they use the movements of legs and facial expressions instead of using words. Poetry is an inner experience that is symbolized through language. Any art form is an unusual experience that shakes artists, poets, dancers, musicians, and artists of other categories bring out their feelings, bring out their emotions, bring out their thoughts, their experiences and dreams in their own languages and in their own ways. Their languages and ways may differ, may not be the same, but they share the same goal. A poet uses ink, a painter uses brush and colors, a dancer uses the movements of different parts of the body, and it goes on and on. Artists of different genres use different modes to express what is within. I call it God with a small g. This God within is in abstract form. This God within is intangible. This God within is inexpressible. The question before the artist is how to bring it out in a tangible form so that the people may read, so that people may be able to touch and see it. This need tools. And the proper use of these tools need isolation. Poets need a cave to avoid distractions. COVID-19 lockdown provides self-isolation to creators for meaningful use. Towards the end, I would like to thank Dr. Chaudhary again for inviting me and other speakers, particularly Dr. who has been able to work very hard. I'm talking about Dr. Kalyan Gangarde. He's also, I believe, a writer. I'm thankful to all of you and other speakers for making this conference very useful and a time to remember. I also thank you all for listening patiently. God bless you all.